Welcome back, America on Fridays. This is my one. I try and gather in a couple of smart folks from around the D.C. and New York worlds to go back over the weekend review. One of those is Charles C.W. Cook. He is the senior writer for National Review. He's a frequent contributor to the Editor's News podcast, and he is the host of his own podcast, the Charles C.W. Cook podcast, which is among the more eclectic podcasts out there, Charles. I think you do mix it up a lot. I want to start with the story about John Brennan, what John Ratcliffe wrote about what he discovered, and the referral to the Department of Justice and the announcement that a criminal investigation had been opened. Do you think that's a significant story, and if so, why?
Oh, I certainly think it's a significant story. John Brennan has been at the heart of American politics for a decade now. He's always struck me as a deeply unpleasant person. He's always struck me as somebody who toyed around the edges of propriety. So, yeah, that's a big story.
It is a big story, and it also ought to be, I think, an easy question for justice to decide. He testified to Congress. They have a report from the CIA. If the former reveals that it was included lies on the basis of the latter, you charge. Do you think it could be quick, unlike pretty much everything else we've gotten used to in the United States involving lawfare?
No, I think it should be quick. I mean, look, we drag our feet on these things. People on the inside don't want to prosecute each other. And we're actually really quite bad at exercising congressional powers. Lying is a big deal. Denying subpoenas is a big deal. But we only ever seem to... Well, you have to have the right party in charge and the right moment and enough of them to actually get anything done. So, no, I don't think this will be quick. I think this will be dragged out. What I do think is that, irrespective of how long it takes, this has put a real damper on his reputation. And I hope people will stop listening to him. So even if it takes 5 years to resolve this, I hope people will stop listening to that man, because I do think he's bad news.
I think he's always cast a sinister shadow across American politics for reasons that are numerous, and I would like to see it resolved. Second question, story in the Wall Street Journal today. Trump's unsung economic booster, deregulation. Are we paying enough attention, Charles C.W. Cook, to efforts to deregulate everything?
No, we're not paying enough attention to it. It's a huge story. Unfortunately, two developments have obtained since the 1930s. It's got worse in recent years. One is far too much federal regulation per se. And two is too much federal regulation that occurs at the executive level. The good side of this is that when you get a president who wants to deregulate, an awful lot can be done without Congress, because an awful lot was done in the first place without Congress. Now, if you go back to Trump's first term, he had some rubric. I think it was for every regulation that we add, we'll get rid of, was it 3 or 4? Now it's 10. He wants to get rid of 10 now for every one that is added. That is necessary. And it's not just necessary because I don't like regulation, although I don't, but it's necessary because the presidency needs to be a key player in undoing an awful lot of the thicket that has been laid for 50, 60, 70 years now. So this is a great start. It's going to help enormously. It's something that Barack Obama and Joe Biden never understood. They wanted economic growth, but they just couldn't grasp that one of the biggest impediments to that, in addition to obvious things like tax policy and so forth, is regulation. And they have a huge amount of power now to deal with it. I'm glad Trump's doing it.
Within your understanding of Article 2, the president's powers as commander-in-chief, they got a big bump of money, $158 billion in the One Big Beautiful Bill. A lot of it's lined item out, but there's a lot of discretion. Do you think it's within the president's power to simply reprogram money to where he needs it to be in the Department of Defense, even if it's been appropriated to a general line item, because he's the commander-in-chief, Charles?
I think it depends how general it is. This is one of those difficult questions that lies in the details. If Congress said, for example, and I'm making this up, it doesn't exist, but we wish to build a F-60 aircraft, and it has to be capable of this range and delivering this payload, and it should operate in this region of the world for this purpose. And then the president takes the money and says, well, instead of that, I'm going to build a bunch of boats. Then no, I don't think that's acceptable. I do think, though, there comes a point at which if you've allocated money for defense and given it to the commander-in-chief, who has a great deal of discretion over tactics and the in-the-field details, then yes. So I think that's one of those issues that really depends on the detail, but there's some latitude there and should be.
I'm going to come back with Charles during the break, and then after the break, don't go anywhere. We got a lot to cover, America. Stay tuned. I'm Hugh Hewitt. Okay, Charles, I'm looking at 3 stories from today. From the Washington Free Beacon, Columbia nears deal with Trump administration. University will pay discrimination victims, reveal more admissions and hiring data, but will dodge harsher measures. Then there's a story on the Trump staffers who set out to reshape their alma maters. A couple of staffers going after UVA and Harvard at DOJ. And then from the Wall Street Journal, Harvard explores new center for conservative scholarship amid Trump attacks. Now, they've focused thus far on Harvard, Columbia, and UVA. If they do 3 or 4 investigations or prosecutions for violation of civil rights law every 6 months, they might make a dent in higher ed. Are you an optimist about that?
Yeah. I think because it's coming in conjunction with the public's realization of what our institutions of higher learning have become. Trump is not so much running against the tide here as running with it. Now, he will run into a wall in that the universities will fight tooth and nail to keep what they have built. But if we wanted to construct a system in which private universities were truly private, I would be interested in listening to that proposal. But we don't have that. And since 1964, and then with the subsequent amendments, we have exercised as a nation a great amount of control over our universities if they took a single cent of public money. You do have exceptions, Hillsdale, for example. The idea that this can only be wielded by Democratic presidents with their particular, and I think often wrong, interpretation of civil rights law is absolutely bizarre. You hear this all the time from progressives. Oh, how dare he go after this private institution? Don't give me that. They've been doing this for years with these universities. You finally have a president who is willing to stand up for the real interpretation of civil rights laws in many cases. And they hate it, but they should hate it. So I think he's going to find it difficult because they will fight tooth and nail. But I think, yeah, he should keep going. He'll make a dent. He's got the public behind him. I don't think people want Harvard or Columbia to behave the way that they do.
Now, Neil Ferguson out at Stanford doubts whether the Harvard approach to trying to create their own Hoover Institution will work. He thinks it'll be segregated, a sort of apartheid for the conservatives. Anything is better than what they've got. Now, you're an Oxbridge guy. I'm a Harvard guy. I went there when it was normal. Now it's a left-wing indoctrination center. I don't know what's happened at Oxbridge. I'm not optimistic that they can reverse this without a whole of university approach. A minute, Charles, till we come back on. Do you think they can get it done if there's the will to really make them genuinely diverse?
Well, I think it's a matter of starting where you are and looking for modest improvement and then working from there. So I think the way you put it was right. I think if they keep firing away, they will make a small improvement. I'm pretty optimistic that these centers can make a big difference. I've been looking at the ones in Florida and in Texas, and it's not just that they occupy a certain space in the campus, but then students who aren't necessarily of that persuasion go over and they see how open-minded and interesting people are, and then it opens their mind. So they don't necessarily need to take over the whole college to have a big impact.
I'm with you on that. I'll be right back with Charles C. W. Cook. Stand by. A week ago tomorrow, President Donald Trump signed the One Big Beautiful Bill, which only required 50 votes of the Senate because J.D. Vance added a 51, and it passed, and it's been signed into law. Here's the kicker. We can do that 2 more times under the rules. Simple majority in the House, simple majority in the Senate. My guest is Charles C.W. Cook. His podcast is the Charles C.W. Cook Podcast, senior writer for National Review, contributor to the editors. Charles, if Speaker Johnson can get the Budget Committee to get together and do a budget, and the Senate can do a budget, and they can unlock, what would you like them to do in round 2, much less round 3?
Whew. Well, what I would like them to do and what they're likely to do are often not the same thing. I mean, I think there was a lot of good in that bill. It really was enormous. It encompassed spending, it encompassed the reconstitution of the tax cuts, some changes, increase in the defense budgets, border spending. The difficulty that obviously involved has put me in a modest mood. What would I like to see? I'd like to see some more changes to spending, more slowing the growth. I don't think they really did cuts, but more slowing the growth. I would like to see a rescission package where the recommendations that were made by DOJ are made formal by Congress. I would like to see some further changes to regulation. We discussed that are made permanent so that they can't be reversed, having been reversed next time a Democrat's in office. But look, the reason I sound modest here and I'm struggling a little bit is I just think when you have the margins that they have, and when you have not yet got an agreement from the public to address the elephant in the room, which is our massive runaway entitlement spending that there seems to be no end to in sight, all that you can do in the short term is try and get the best policy that you can. And that was the purpose, not always the success, but that was the purpose of the big, beautiful bill. It was to say, what's the best tax policy for the next 10 years? What's the best spending policy for the next 10 years? And they did the best they could with really narrow margins. You know, a lot of the good stuff got taken out or watered down. So I don't know what room there is for big conservative change, but a rescission package, some congressional deregulation, I'd be happy enough with this Congress.
I'm trying to socialize the idea of one minor change to one entitlement, just to prove that it's possible and that it does not electrocute the body. For example, you're under 55, so this would apply to you, would not apply to me. For everyone 55 years and younger, you're going to work till you're 66. And by the way, we're going to raise the retirement age 1 month every year for the next 60 years, so that eventually you're going to retire at 75 after 60 years. Do you think that would cause a rebellion, even though the Democrats would try and make it a deal? Or do you think the American people realize we really do have to change the trajectory?
I mean, first off, I think that's an excellent idea, and it's something we should have done a long time ago. As you know well, the reason the age is 65 is because that was the age at which most people died in 1935 when Social Security was passed. The fact that we had never raised the age, even if we said we will do 1 month every 2 years as of the 1960s, it would have sorted itself out. So I think it's an excellent idea. I do think that there would be a significant rebellion. I do think at the same time, we are probably not too far away from people recognizing there's an issue. Automatic cuts will come in if we don't fix this problem, and they will be far worse than whatever Congress will get together and do instead, or worse than the idea that you just posed. So probably the first thing to do is to start building the case. I wonder if there would be enough votes in the House for a plan like that. But I mean, I completely agree with you. I don't understand why we're sleepwalking into this. What you have described would not be radical. It would be completely sensible. It would be slow. I know a lot of people of my age, I'm just about 40, who don't think they're getting any Social Security anyway. They just say this as a matter of course. Well, I'll never see it. Well, okay, well, then you should be strongly on board with very slowly fixing it, right? What's the worst that can happen? But it's just
but as you get closer to 55, you don't want people to mess around with it. And when you get, I'm way past 65. I don't want them to change it. I put all my money in. But if they'd begun 30 years ago, like we did with the federal pension system, to move it from a guaranteed contribution to from guaranteed benefit, the change would be over. Long, slow change is a wonderful thing. It's like compound interest.
Yeah.
It's just that I think...
And I don't want to pay the taxes either. I mean, that's the thing, right? Is that I agree with you. People don't want the change. They don't want it to go up from 55. But if you look at how much tax would need to be paid to make it solvent, people don't want to do that either. So they're going to have to choose one.
Or face bond vigilantes. And I've been trying to talk a lot about that. And I don't really think Americans know enough or worry enough about that? Do you think they know what that is? And it happened in London to Liz Truss. It can happen to us.
Oh, people haven't got a clue what that is. I don't say that disparagingly. People are busy with their lives. I doubt 1 in 10 people could tell you what the bond market was, let alone the downside risk here of not dealing with our fiscal situation.
It is enormous. Charles C.W. Cook, thank you for joining me. Follow him on X at Charles C.W. Cook. Sign up to like and follow the Charles C.W. Cook podcast, as well as National Review. The editors, always entertaining. Always a diverse group of people talking about a lot of different things. Thank you, Charles.
For full shows, live and on demand, it's Salem News Channel.